Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Greg Owen, co-founder of PrEP Now. It's up there. I'm obviously not Phil Joffe, who is sat in the audience. By the way, I love your presenting slide art style. Every slide that I create, I pretty much go, ugh. I absolutely can't stand PowerPoint, but let's see if we can get through. Okay, so Phil Joffe is here from Dynamics, which is an online PrEP supplier, and my website is PrEP Now. Our Twitter handles are there, and unlike Yanis, you can tweet about me all the way through my presentation. It might keep you awake. Okay, so PrEP Now is a website that facilitates the safe and reliable purchase of genuine generic PrEP from trusted and verified sellers. So how are we doing? We launched on the 19th of October 2015, and here is our traffic data. So we're averaging currently about 20,000 unique visitors per month. Since we started our analytics on the 1st of January 2016, we have had almost 270,000 unique visitors with almost 1 million page views. And thank you. And because this is a European PrEP summit, I've included our top 10, which, no surprise, is the UK, followed by the US, Germany, Spain, Netherlands, Ireland, Italy, Switzerland, Australia, and France. So, why does PrEP Now have a preferred seller? There are a range of reasons. I haven't got my notes, so let's wing it. Continuity. Continuity, stock, and planning. So when we first launched, none of our sellers would engage with us or communicate with us, and so we had no way of dealing with any issues that popped up. But above and beyond that, we had no way of planning, and I think it's quite evident from the stuff that we've presented over the course of the summit that PrEP uptake and awareness and interest increased exponentially, exploded actually, from the start of 2016. Most of that work with managing that stuff fell to me and some to Will Nutland from Prepster, and it was driving me a little bit insane. So we are working now with Dynamics, and so what we can do and put in place is we can start to do some planning. So I know when New Zealand had a particularly slow and low awareness of PrEP in New Zealand, Phil introduced a discount code to try and incentivize people to actually stop thinking and start taking PrEP. And so it's little things like that that really I could do with maybe 10 sellers and suppliers, but there's only one of me and countless sellers. Also, in the early days, when people didn't really know or trust, or there was no precedent, really, for purchasing generic PrEP online, we had to offer some reassurances and some safeguards. And we did that by way of TDM. So TDM stands for Therapeutic Drug Monitoring. And very basically and simply what that does is it will test a PrEP user's blood for active drug level. So working together with 5016 Street and Will, it literally was Will's blood, sweat and tears throughout 2016. We tested blood of almost 300 PrEP users who were sourcing generic PrEP from our website, and we found no fakes. Obviously now, because I have a long-standing working relationship with Phil and Dynamics, we no longer need therapeutic drug monitoring, so it reduces some of the cost, and also we can make sure where the supply chain is coming from manufacturer to 1 or 2 pharmacies and direct to customer. Feeding on from that, it's the ease of use and customer support. So Phil and Dynamics run a Facebook group, so not only can they deal with order inquiries or some of the technical stuff, they also offer a lot of peer-to-peer support, and that's incredibly important. Some stuff that wouldn't necessarily be particularly appropriate for Damon's group is more suitable for Phil's group. And again, all of that peer-to-peer support and chasing up orders were things that fell to predominantly Will and myself over the early years. So there are obviously pros and cons of having a closed but public platform for people to discuss PrEP use. It is a barrier to some people. We also have sales data, and this is great for us because Will has presented on it a few times, and we're able to see from our traffic, which we can do by location in the UK and globally, we can see where that is actually converting into sales and uptake. They pretty much run parallel, so anything that gets traffic for us gets sales and uptake of PrEP. So when we kind of launched this model, it was quite out there and there was no PrEP support. So what we found ourselves delivering in the absence of clinical PrEP support was a virtual PrEP clinic. I'm very glad to say that Will and I have handed most of that over to THT Direct, although we still deal with European inquiries. It allows us to disseminate information. So somebody mentioned yesterday that over 600 people per week in England are being turned away from sexual health services. Quite problematic if you're taking PrEP and not feeding into a PrEP-specific clinic, and you are self-managing and want to go for a full STI screen with HIV test, and you're asymptomatic. So I had a meeting with Dean Street last week, and if you turn up to Dean Street Express with your email confirmation of your purchase from one of our sellers, you will automatically go straight to the front of the queue and you'll get priority to have your quarterly screening. They will then try to link you into care, into a structured PrEP clinic, but they're very flexible. So there we go, we can disseminate information. And capacity, I've mentioned it I think 3 times already. I didn't have very much capacity. And autonomy. A disclaimer is that I won't PrEP now, never has, never will take any commission or rent for listing our sellers. So just because you're not listed on our Buy Now page does not mean that those sellers are not providing genuine generic drug. It's just that I, as one person, cannot run to countless lists of suppliers. There is an online PrEP price comparison site. That wasn't one of my objectives. So what we have done, in effect, is created a community healthcare system in the absence of a national healthcare system specifically for PrEP. So there are sites out there where you can compare prices. I'm not that. Okay, so adaptations. Let's give credit where credit's due. They say all roads or all rivers flow to the sea, but I think in this case, all rivers flow away from PrEP facts. So everything, certainly in my experience, has... Hi, Damon. Hola. So this is where I learned my stuff as from coming from nowhere and knowing nothing, and I feed back in and out regularly. But moving on from the adaptation of where most of us started out, is that it's incredibly important, we've mentioned it several times, that we had region-specific websites and Facebook groups that are in the language and that are culturally aware of what's going on. Obviously, logistics and legality is also a big issue. So let's go with the Republic of Ireland, and we have Adam and Andrew here. I met with them in late 2016. We're above and beyond the law. They were already working with their HIV and prevention consultants, and they were already trying to figure out what the law was in order to write prescriptions, even for online PrEP. So that is the law there, right? So they had a group of consultants that were willing to write prescriptions for online PrEP. And they have presented it here, PrEP and the Law. There is a provision from community pharmacies in the Republic of Ireland, but still cost at €100 a pot is highly prohibitive for most of us. Germany. So the German guys pretty much ran with the model of self-sourcing into the UK, where it is legal to self-source up to 3 months at a time for personal use. And then they extended it by adding the parcel forwarding service. PrEP is also available now in Germany at a cost of €50 a month. I'm not going to labour these points too much because I know there's some contention and some slightly grey area with legal situations, so let's skip right through and talk in the break. And we have Spain and the Canary Islands. Again, very similar situation to Germany. They have been using creative ways to get PrEP into Spain. It's still not listed and legal to do that. A caveat to the Spanish legal situation. Okay, so we've talked about adaptations of websites and Facebook groups. Well, let's talk a little bit about how this model, Mike touched on it earlier, evolves, can be enhanced, and can be more inclusive. So Mike and I have been working on a PrEP template that he mentioned for general practitioners, family doctors, and pharmacists, and it's a PrEP fact sheet. That is also going to tie into a campaign I'm doing with THT. I think we're sending out hard copies poster campaign and targeted Facebook social media adverts to several hundred of our top prevalence postcodes from our national surveillance that have already had some correspondence with Terence Higgins Trust. Moving on to PrEP at home, Mike mentioned that again. We're looking at taking what's existing for people self-sourcing PrEP and making that a fully functional, all singing, all dancing service. And what am I like for time? All right, you're going to do your card thing, right? And breaking news, 56 Dean Street are just about to launch the UK's first PrEP shop. So you can literally walk into Dean Street. It's not as easy as walking in, throwing your money and getting your drug. That's not how it happens. There are a few steps. So it's self-sourcing direct from 56 Dean Street's pharmacy at £55 per month. If we're working that out comparatively to online PrEP, I think Phil has a promotion on at the minute. He's offered some discount to go in association for Valentine's Day. And what are you laughing at? What, romance is not dead. It's 50. I think Phil's 3 months works out at about £55 a month for 3 months. Dean Street is coming in at £55 per month. I think it's great. I fully support it as myself and on behalf of I Want PrEP Now. It does raise a few issues, but we'll get on to those. So how are we able to do this? It's able to be prescribed via something called additional private care, which is pretty much what cancer patients would use to purchase additional drug that is not provided through the NHS. It's exactly the same mechanism to sell and monitor PrEP. So the fine print, I'm not going to rattle through all of this, it's basically an understanding that you're not purchasing extra healthcare. You get the same healthcare as anybody else on the NHS. What you're purchasing is drug itself. You will not get a refund if NHS England make PrEP available for free, but no chance of that happening anytime soon. The private part of the NHS and the standard NHS are kept separate and will be monitored, and they will initially issue you with 3 months at a time. So, why? And this is the question. So, Dean Street currently have 200 people on a waiting list for PrEP, for positions on the PrEP impact trial, of which they have none left. They're actually over their quota of ring-fenced women and other people spaces as well. When I went to meet with Dean Street last week, I asked them a few questions. Why would this be more acceptable than online PrEP? They didn't have any answers, but they just want to do something. By no means is this meant to create a tiered healthcare system, thank you, where we encourage people to purchase drug. One of the great things about living in the UK is our national healthcare system, and we are all committed to securing free PrEP on the NHS. But I'd be interested to know, does this appeal to someone who doesn't have a fixed address, is not out about their sexuality or PrEP use at home where they can't have PrEP safely delivered to? Does the user not have English perhaps as a first language? Is the user struggling to navigate the online purchase process? It's not particularly easy, nor is it particularly difficult, but some people do struggle. Does the user have additional learning needs? And is the user just unsure and maybe needs to speak to someone? It'll be interesting to get some feedback from Dean Street to see if this changes the demographic we're seeing with uptake in PrEP. And will people go in and just buy a month for holiday PrEP or a short period of daily PrEP or on-demand PrEP? Let's see. But, as I mentioned, there are always pros and cons. So, as I mentioned already, we have a commitment to securing free access to PrEP on the NHS. And again, I think there's consultation going on with some NGOs in England, NAT and THT and some other people about what this means for us from a strategy perspective, and we will continue to push for free access to PrEP. Again, the concern is that this will further compound health inequalities. And the last question I got asked to address here by Gus was, how do we create access to online PrEP for those with a lower socioeconomic status? There are a few options and things that we've banded around and talked about. And again, we talked about this with Dean Street as well last week. So a community assistance program, in essence, is what we're talking about. We call it the CAP. So you could potentially negotiate with the seller to add a percentage to the total price and then accrue free PrEP for every person that is selling or self-sourcing for themselves. You get an accumulation of free PrEP where you can offer a coupon scheme and a code to be redeemed against PrEP supply. And that could either be totally free or means tested. Again, this is something that requires organisation and capacity, and I don't have that. Incentivized referrals, kind of like Uber. You get a code, they get a code, everyone gets a discount. Pay it forward like Starbucks. So if there was an option with sellers that if you wanted to buy an extra pot and that is distributed amongst the community. So I picked Uber and Starbucks. Probably not great examples. I don't really think they paid the correct tax. But then neither did Gilead, so that's okay. Yeah, I said it. We're also talking about the PrEP Hardship Fund. which is basically, we have a HIV hardship fund with THT, where they give an amount of money to a person living with HIV to help with whatever costs. But it's not so easy with PrEP users, because you just can't just chuck 150 quid or 200 quid at people. We'd want to take them through the process of purchasing online, and we'd also want to make sure they get the appropriate support. We have sought legal advice on that, and it's apparently okay for us to do that. But again, someone has to pay, and why the hell isn't it global healthcare systems? So a global health concern needs a global solution. And while PrEP remains a foreign concept, that's all it will ever be. So while I fully admit, and I'll be the first to say, that self-sourcing online PrEP is not ideal, without a doubt, it is the catalyst for the chain of change. We never would have made it to where we are in the UK without those predominantly gay and bisexual men bypassing risk assessment, bypassing clinic, ordering the PrEP online, taking it to clinic, saying, I'm using this, support me, with their peers, and forcing change. I had a lot of clinicians come to myself and Will and are like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, well, support these people and get your commissioners to pay for the dipstick. Simples. So, yeah, we would not be here without the work and the commitment and the passion of a lot of people. So, I think I'm almost done. So, yep, while PrEP remains a foreign concept, that's all it will ever be. Get out there, make it happen, and we will force change. And I want to finish with that. Those are some amazing people, and yeah, thank you.